Hi. Yeah. I'm a millennial. I was born in the 80s. And what that means ultimately is that my childhood was spent in an analog world and my adulthood has been spent in the digital world. And that transition from one to the other, it wasn't like flicking a switch. Like these days, all files are in the cloud automatically. You write a document, you take a picture, it's automatically uploaded somewhere, it's safe, it's secured. Back in the day, that wasn't the case, even if something was digital. What am I waffling on about? Well, I'm going to be 40 years old this year. I'm turning 40. And yeah, midlife crisis time. No, I have two young children at home who are growing up rapidly. And it was really a point in my life where I realized I need to kind of organize and take stock of everything that I have. Every time that we move house, every time that we travel around, we're bringing all of this stuff with us. I've got boxes and boxes worth of stuff. And, you know, none of it's going anywhere. What's the point of it? What are we aiming to do with it? In the Marie Kondo world, is it sparking joy? If not, why do I have it? And really, it's just because of that feeling of like, well, I can't let this go. I don't want to lose this. What if it's important one day? Well, one day is now, and I decided I want to back up my life. This is my mission for this year of my life. I want to back up my life. I want to create a hard reset point in my life. Um, you know, I've had situations before where I had a camcorder that got stolen or went missing. I don't know, but I had several tapes worth of footage of my band playing and other things which are gone forever now. I never backed that stuff up. A camcorder with tapes, gone forever. I had a laptop that got stolen in 2012, and none of the work I'd backed things up to the end of 2011, and so there was a good 6-7 months worth of work that had not been backed up in any form, gone forever. I am um, quite a keen writer and quite a keen documenter. I certainly used to be, not so much these days. Um, but all of those thoughts and ideas and stubs and just little things that I'd done, um, gone. You know. Uh so there's a point now where it's like, well, I want to back all of that up. What does that mean in practice? Well, in short, there's several stages to this. So, for example, every time that I got a new laptop, I've had 5 or 6 laptops throughout my life that I've used for work. And of course, nowadays, everything's in the cloud. So you just connect to it and all your files are there straight away. That wasn't the case back in the day. Back in the day, you had to do like a copy, paste somewhere else. So I've got a hard drive here. This hard drive contains every single backup that I've ever done. And if you think for 1 second that past me was in any way logical with the way that I backed things up, then you don't know me. I would basically just create a new folder called backup and I would just dump everything into it. And then I'd get another laptop at another time. I'd create another folder, backup to, or just call it new folder, and dump everything in there. So there's duplicates of files. There are newer versions of a file, and I've got to sort out which is the newer version. So that's part one. That's the easy part of things to do. It gets harder because on top of that, I also have hundreds of these things. Because back in the day, we used to back up to writable CDs. So I've got a lot of these which have stuff on them. What stuff is on them? I don't know. That's something that I need to go through. But believe it or not, that is also very, very easy, because it gets even harder. Because if we go further back in time, then suddenly we're talking about these floppy disks, which are not floppy, onto which I was backing stuff up to as late as like 2000, 2001. So, 20 years ago. Homework from school, essays that I wrote, early writings that I did, all of that stuff is on these floppy disks. But it gets worse. And here we get a curveball. Because back in the day, there were multiple different ways of formatting these things. There was the standard Windows way of formatting. But my parents didn't actually own a computer or a Windows computer until 1998. And prior to that point, and slightly overlapping with that point, we used something which was called a Canon Star Writer. It is an electronic word processor. And I did a great deal of writing on that from about the age of 12 until about the age of 15 or so, when we got the Windows PC. Here's the problem. Canon Star Writer files formatted in a completely different way, which Windows can't read. There is no emulation software that I'm aware of out there. So the only way to read these particular disks that are in my hand is on an original Canon Star Writer. So in order to back this stuff up, I would need to actually get an original Canon Star Writer, print out the documents, and then scan those documents in and digitize them into a Windows PC. That's the only way that I can think of doing them. So that's a problem. Further to that point, these things are just rotting right now. They have stored information magnetically. Yes, it's digital, but it's stored. It's basically on a kind of. Well, you can see what it looks like. It's just like this. It's like a thin film inside onto which all of that information has been stored. These things are rotting. The information that's on them is degrading year by year by year. I've already looked through a few of them. Some of the files I was able to save. Some of the files I can see that they're there. I cannot copy them over. They are refusing to copy. So that's another issue that I need to face into. So, believe it or not though, it gets even more complicated, because even before that, my parents owned a Commodore C64. And the Commodore C64 had rudimentary word processor capabilities. And I used those rudimentary word processor capabilities from about the age of, I guess, 9 until the age of 12, when we got the Canon Star Writer. Those are actual floppy disks back at my parents' house. Those really are falling apart, literally and figuratively. So that's a race against time to try and actually rescue them. Good news there, I do have an original Commodore 64, which potentially could work. How I'm going to get the files off there, I don't know, but I do have the hardware. I don't have a Canon Star Writer. So you see the sorts of issues that I'm talking about. And then it gets even more complicated, because we haven't even mentioned the elephant in the room, which is tapes. Because back in the day, with the Commodore C64 and elsewhere, we were backing up digital information on an analog medium as known as a cassette tape. So I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of cassette tapes which contain, if you played them on a tape recorder, they'd sound like an internet dial-up modem. They sound like that because it's digital information. Got to get that off. That's also rotting. But more to the point, I do also have dozens and dozens and dozens of tapes, which I have actually recorded onto. Back when my band was playing music, and we were doing like mixtapes, and we were like recording our sessions, our gigs, that was all onto tape. Back in the day when, because there was no digital way to record back then, hard drives were so small, the easiest way to record was straight onto a tape recorder. I've got 4-track tapes, which I was recording like rudimentary like mixing, where you got 4 tracks, you mix them together. Those are on tapes as well. In here, I've got different tape formats. I've got these small mini DV tapes which have footage on them, which we filmed. I've got these tiny dictaphone tapes, which recorded on a dictaphone. The good news there, I do actually have a working dictaphone. That's helpful. And I do have a working cassette player. So that's helpful. I don't, however, have anything that will play a mini DV tape. And neither do I have anything that would play one of these, a VCR. What is on a VCR, you ask? Well, I used to do amateur dramatics. So there's a great deal of footage of me on stage performing when I was a child, which is stuck on VHS. There's a lot of other things as well which are lost to time because we only ever made one copy of things because we were stupid back in the day, and that copy I know is at so-and-so's house, or it should be. For all intents and purposes, it is lost to time. So that's tapes and digital information that needs backing up. Oh, what else needs backing up? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you're joining this mad mission with me. Because, of course, we have photographs. Photographs, back in the day, they were all done on, you get some film for a camera and you just take some pictures and you got to kind of just, how am I going to get those digitally? Well, in some cases, I have the raw film, in which case potentially I could digitize that way because I've got the raw film, but not for all of these. So for some of them, I'm just going to have to kind of scan them in, take a picture of them, and need I point out, no one could take a picture back in the day. It's hilarious. Like, this is just a minor side point. But like these days, of course, everyone's got a camera on their phone. Everyone's all about taking the right angle, putting the filter onto it. Back then, you just point and shoot. You've no idea what you've got until it comes back from the developer. And things are just really badly framed and lit, and it's just really like random. What's in, like, you're lucky if you even get a person in the frame sometimes. Like no one could take a picture. It's hilarious. Anyway, that's a minor tangent. I've got a lot of photographs here that need to be backed up, because if they're not, if I ever had a fire, if I ever had some theft, if I ever just moved house and forgot about these things, they would be lost to the sea of time, and I would never have them. And, well, is that a problem? Well, it might be a bit of a problem for me. I'd be sad about it, but equally, I have 2 young children. I want my children to be able to look back and see pictures of their father when he was young, and the friends that he had, and the places that he went, and the people that he knew. I can't look back on my parents' childhood. There's maybe like 1 or 2 pictures that have passed up to the modern day, like a little one picture in black and white of like a Polaroid, and that's your great grandfather. Oh, great, wonderful. My children now are swamped with pictures. I've got dozens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of pictures of my children, and that's going to be the case through their entire life. Their children are going to be able to look back and see lots of pictures, and their children are going to be able to look back and see lots of pictures, presumably. But me, I'm on that cusp between those 2 worlds, where there's lots of pictures of me as a grown-up, but the pictures of me as a child and growing up, they're stuck on physical medium, and that physical medium is getting creased and folded, and just is degrading over time. That needs backing up. What else? Well, I already mentioned that I used to be quite a quite a proficient writer. I was writing all the time, and so I have got dozens and dozens and dozens of notebooks, physical notebooks, into which I just used to just write and write and write and write and write and write and write all these thoughts and ideas, story beginnings. And in some cases, I've already digitized them. If you see this page here, got a little slash across it. That's a very, and this one here as well. That's me telling myself, I've already copied this. I wrote it down by hand, and then I've copied that onto a file somewhere. So I've got a file somewhere in this thing where that's already been copied physically. But, there's a lot of pages here which haven't had that treatment done to them. So I've got to go through all of these and potentially copy all of the information up. And you might say, well, why would you bother doing that? What's the point? Well, there are actually some really good things in here. There's, again, it's about saving things from your childhood. I've got things here from, when I was like 6, 7 years old, the same age that my children are now, where I did I did a little story here. I did a little I did a little cartoon here. There are things which I kind of want to save. I'm saving the things that my children are doing at this age. Why don't I save the things that I'm doing at this age? Why does that have to just disappear and rot and fade away? And again, this goes back to what I was saying before. Yeah, you move house. I travel abroad. I come back. There are boxes and boxes of these things, and a couple of them might disappear somewhere along the way, or just be forgotten about. And again, it's just gone forever. And then one day I'm looking back and I'm thinking, whatever happened to that story I wrote about that telephone that gained superpowers, and it was connected to the switch network, and so it was able to hear all of the 999 calls, and it gained superpowers and decided to go and deal with those calls by itself. That was legitimately a story I wrote. Super telephone. He was awesome. Whatever happened to that? Well, it's in one of these documents here. Now, some of these, obviously, like I say, they're from my childhood, and I want to kind of retain them. I don't want to lose them because they're kind of precious. So these I'm just going to digitize, take pictures of, and save. Other ones of these are into my adulthood, when I'm like in my 20s and into my 30s, and I'm just writing longhand, as you just saw in that example. And these ones, what I'm doing is I'm actually going through and I'm just like ripping out pages where there's information that's needed, and tossing the rest of the notebook away, trying to like reduce the amount of work that I need to do into kind of something a bit more manageable. So I've only got like a few pages from each notebook that need to be digitized. And in some cases, again, I did work at I did it at work, when I was supposed to be working, and I had an idea, and I just was like, I'm just gonna write down some idea. But of course, that was then stuck within the firewall that was my work, and it's impossible to download it and get it out. So I would print it. So I've got files which I wrote and just printed. Those will need to be scanned and digitized. That's actually relatively easy to do, like scanning in text like this. Software can do that. You take a picture and you can recognize the text. That's nice and easy to do. So yeah, those are the things that need to be digitized and uploaded. And I'm slowly working through these things. I'm trying to take them logistically. At the moment, I'm working through this folder of stories about Pokemon, because I was a big Pokemon fan, and I would do like comics and things about myself as a Pokemon trainer. I made a game like a bit like D&D, but with Pokemon. wrote all the stats out for it. So at the moment, I'm in the process of digitizing this. I'm almost done with that. But there's other things to do as well. And I've basically got, in the corner of my room here, I've got two boxes. One of which says to do, and it's just full of all the things that I need to digitize and upload. And one of which is a lot smaller at the moment, which says done. And as you can see, there's a few things in there. I've already started on this process, but it's going to take a long, long time to get all of this done. Like I say, this is my mission for the year, is to do all of this. But the goal is that by the end of this, I will have a folder online which contains everything. Every thought, every picture, every idea, every recording I've made, both visual and audio, and everything, all in one neatly structured and ordered folder. And then that is there as a reference point for me looking backwards. It is there for my children if they ever want to look at things. But also, it helps to be a very, very useful line in the sand where I can then start throwing away some of these things that I've just been dragging with me this whole time. Do I need this box of VHS tapes now? I've digitized the information that's on there. Do I actually need to retain this VHS tape? It's taking up space. It's bulky. Let's toss it, you know? That is the ultimate goal. And that is my goal for the year. And so I'm stating it here for the record. And I'm going to do periodical updates with my progress and how it's going, any bumps in the road, any hiccups that I receive. And I'm very interested to see how all of that pans out. So we'll take it one step at a time. This is me backing up my life. Yeah, fun times.